The theaters are closed. You can't go anywhere afterwards for a drink or a dinner beforehand. But you know what? People are still making movies, and they're putting them out. Now, they may not be the big box office movies. James Bond's been pushed back. Mulan's been pushed back. All the big movies, Black Widow, have all been pushed back because they want that box office score. But the independent theaters are still putting out movies, and they're movies that you can watch in the comfort and safety of your own home. I have tonight a veritable plethora of those movies. In fact, there's only one movie I'm talking about tonight that is a theatrical release. So get ready to gear up for your viewing pleasure. I'm here to tell you all about it. Cinematic class is about to begin, and your professor is in. Say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies. You know, before we get started, I got to tell you that some months ago I appeared on Kettle Whistle Radio, their program, and we did 2 back-to-back showings. Boy, it went through the roof. People just loved the show. So I was back on again for a 3rd time, and we had a blast with David Fairhead and Sean Fieldbush. It was just great. And if you haven't listened to Kettle Whistle Radio, you probably want to do that, especially if you're interested when I'm on in movies, and also some brand new music coming out because they highlight that as well. It's a great show, and I have a link to it on the Facebook page. So if you go to the official Outtakes with Fiore Facebook page, you'll find a direct link to the show for Kettle Whistle Radio, my 3rd outing there. We had a blast. David and Sean are already talking about me coming back again. Hey, already the premier critic in the tri-state area, and through Kettle Whistle Radio, I may soon be the premier film critic in the nation. It's just got a huge audience. Told you about a lot of movies. Let's get started with those. The first I want to tell you about is the only movie that actually is playing in the theaters that you can't go see right now, and that is The Hunt. This was the movie that had an awful lot of controversy. It was supposed to come out last September, and the Hollywood Loony Liberal Left, or the H3L as I like to call them, said that this movie was so controversial that if they released it, especially for the November elections, that people who were Trump supporters would pick up their guns and go out and shoot people. Yeah, this is how bizarre the mentality was. So it was delayed, and it came out about 10 days, I think, before the complete shutdown of the theater. So if you didn't see it in the opening week, you probably missed it. I don't know what they're going to do with it once the theaters reopen. My sources at the studio at Universal say they're going to put it back out again, but depending on how long we're out, this thing may go into the home video market before that. I can tell you a little bit about this movie before I show you some of it. When we went and saw it at the press screening, it was another one of those situations where I was sitting there laughing my head off, and all the other critics were looking back at me going, "It's bloody, it's gory, it's supposed to be," but it reminded me so much of Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers. Do you remember that movie? Now, some people looked at that movie and thought it was just Stone's gore fest. He had to get all this violence out of him. If you really looked at the movie, it was quite a satire, and it was a satire on mass media and the reporters and journalists that were working in media. Robert Downey Jr. did a great job in that movie, and I laughed my butt off. The violence was actually used as a way of augmenting the comedy. Now, that sounds sick and perverse, but it worked, and it's the exact same thing with The Hunt. I laughed. I thought this movie was really funny. I think you will too. Here's a look.
Hello? Hey! What is happening? What is all of this?
Did you see that article? Every year, these liberal elites kidnap a bunch of normal folks like us and hunt us for sport.
The last I heard, free speech still exists.
Don't First Amendment me.
It wasn't real.
Everybody get out of here!
We were joking.
I laughed a lot during the hunt. I'm giving it the grade of a B. I thought it was well worthwhile. And if you play it for laughs, it's, just why so serious? Hey, I have a couple of movies that are actually A grades, and I want to tell you about the first one right now. It's a movie called Burnt Orange Heresy. The British tend to do thrillers rather well. They don't do action thrillers all that great, but they do the methodical, cerebral thrillers very, very well. They've teamed up with the Italians for this movie and got a big star like Donald Sutherland to appear in it. This movie is great. I got to tell you, I enjoyed this one. It is a well-paced thriller. It has an excellent cast, a great story. This is one you don't want to miss. It's currently available on VOD, your favorite streaming device, or home video. You don't want this one to pass you by. It gets an A from the professor. Burnt Orange Heresy. Great thriller. Here's a look.
You're not really how I imagine an art critic would look. Can't tell me you never wanted to paint. Seriously, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I was never a kid.
You're one of those.
On the wedge?
A liar.
Yeah. Ever heard of Joseph Cassidy?
The art dealer?
Been invited to his estate.
You got rich friends.
If you could interview any living artist, who do you think it would be?
At the edge of my property, there's a dilapidated little house. In this house, there's an artist.
No critic has spoken to this guy in over 50 years.
Jerome Debney.
It's an honor, Mr. Debney.
Think of the splash it would make. See and describe his current work.
No, no, no. I cannot abide such things.
You could be running a major museum soon.
And why would you do this for me?
I'd value a Debney, James. And I'd like you to procure one for me.
What is this about?
Redemption, embezzlement, and forgery.
Kind of underhanded, don't you think? You know what we need to do.
Most people are not what you'd expect.
You know, don't you?
They won't.
The truth.
True. Come on.
Say all kind of things are being shut down left and right. You don't know when they're going to open again. As far as I know right now, the Three Rivers Comic-Con is still on. Now, that's scheduled for May 30th and May 31st. And our good friends and sponsors of the show, New Dimension Comics, are putting that on. And I've told you before, I've gone to this thing for the last 3 years. I think this is their 5th year. I've gone the last 3 years, and I have had a blast at this thing. I'm going to go again this year, provided we're allowed out of our houses at the end of May. And I look forward to seeing a lot of you down there. It's a great time. There are some great people down there, even just to sit around and talk to. And of course, the cosplay people are there, make for some great pictures. John and Todd will set things up for you if you want to check out the idea and stay on top of it to see, if it's going to be held and everything. The address is at threeriverscomiccon.com, and you'll be able to keep up on things. It's going to be held at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center this year. Nice, centrally located, big place. They're filling up the first floor of that thing. It's going to be massive, and I hope to see you there for the Three Rivers Comic-Con. Okay. Do you remember all the way back in the 1970s and 80s, there was a plethora of martial arts films. And I got to tell you, a lot of stars came out of this. You can name them: Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Jet Li, Jackie Chan. They all came out of this era, and many, many more. Sonny Chiba. And these movies were really some of them were kind of low on plot, but they were great on fighting and what have you. There's one out now that is absolutely great, and it harkens back to the 70s and the 80s martial arts films. And I got to tell you, Dominique Vanderberg is in this. He is a traditional martial artist, so all of his technique is very, very clean. A lot of blade fighting, which makes it interesting. And this guy's a pretty bad dude, I got to tell you. He served in the Belgian Special Forces, then went to the French Foreign Legion. He fought in mixed martial arts tournaments, and then went over to Thailand and fought those people over there. And they're all crazy over there. So this guy knows his stuff. And when you see his martial arts, it's fantastic. Some of the things are right out of traditional katas. I enjoyed watching this immensely. The story is pretty solid, and at the crux of it is the philosophy of the warrior versus the very peaceful and harmonious life presented by the church. It's all handled pretty nice, and if you like those action films, you're going to like this one. It's called The Mercenary. I gave it a B+. Here's a look.
You have no idea where you are or where you're going.
Would have been better if I had just died, Father. You are a weapon, Max. We need you. If I stay, all of you are in danger. You man. That was a very interesting lesson in nonviolence.
There was only one guy, boss, and he was not a priest.
We know he's here. We know he's alone.
Whoever Max was before. He is no longer.
Okay, in this next segment, I have a series of movies for you. They all earned the grade of a C, which means they're very average. They were fun to watch, but I don't know that I would watch them again. You can go either way on this because it's a 50-50 movie as far as I'm concerned, and sometimes you guys like those an awful lot. So let me start. I have two horror movies, if you will, and one comedy. The first is called Dead Sound. And this is about a group of kids who are trying to get to their friend's party. His party is held over on Block Island, which is in Rhode Island, and this film was made in Rhode Island. I don't think we've had too many of those, so I thought I'd mention that. Anyway, they missed the last ferry going over to the party, and they have to hire these private boat to take them out, and the guys on the private boat are just nasty individuals. What turns out to be a trip over to Block Island turns out to be a fight for life and death. It's called Dead Sound.
Oh, come on. Dude, is there another boat?
The next one leaves tomorrow morning.
Wait, so that's it?
Boys!
Where are you going?
Going to salvage the situation.
You sure you're ready for all this, Ash?
Maybe you should worry about yourself.
So good news, Jake. Bobby here, his first mate on a fishing boat, says he can get us to Block Island. Tonight. Yes!
Flash to shoot.
Yes!
Come and dance with me.
Block Island, here we come! How much longer until we get to Block Island?
Block Island. Our second movie in the average block is a comedy, and it's called Gold Dust. I got to tell you, this movie had Jekyll and Hyde, okay? The first 2/3 of this movie is what I call groan comedy, all right? So you hear the joke, and instead of laughing, you go, oh. Groan comedy, you know what I'm talking about? First 2/3 of the movie was like that. And then the final third of the movie, They threw all the groans out, and they went to a really ridiculous, silly slapstick. And, I like my comedies that way, so I got to tell you, I laughed my butt off on the final third of this movie. If you sit through the first 2/3 with all the groans, I think the ending will bring you up to speed. It's called Gold Dust.
We should leave it.
No, we're not leaving it.
And we should get out of here. Maybe we should just camp here till morning.
No, we can't. Whoever lost this money is gonna come looking for it. So the sooner we get out of here, the better.
Where's my money, Matuka? You, got my big citas. So where's my money? Oh, and where's my lost boy?
You know what? Now that we're rich, maybe I could become an actor again.
No, I don't think that's a great idea.
Bet I could buy a super good...
Hey, look out!
How's a kid wind up out here all alone? She's alive? What do we do, Fake?
Our third movie in our average fare here is a movie called Root Wood. And as it would imply, you think this is something like a tree monster, like a Swamp Thing type thing. And it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. This one probably had a lot more potential, but it really went south in the ending. And once again, they're picking on these shows that reality paranormal shows. And they're picking on one of these again. This is about the third horror movie that's come out in the last couple of months that has that as its theme. And this one was okay. I thought the ending left it lame. It's called Rootwood. Here's a look.
So I want to tell you guys a story. The first person that was rumored to have gone missing in this forest was a little girl and her dog. The villagers walked in the forest looking for the little girl, and they found her, hanging. They said it was the wooden devil that convinced her to hang herself.
It's 2 a.m. and I'm hearing some really strange sounds coming from the trailer.
That thing was in our trailer? How did it get in here?
This is what we came here for.
Hello?
There's something out there.
Say, with everybody spazzing out and businesses closing left and right, many of which probably don't need to, I want to mention that House of Fairuza, although it may not be doing haircuts right now, I believe the cigar lounge is still open. It's a nice place to go and relax at night, have yourself a nice libation and a cigar, watch whatever is on the big screens. Sam down there is doing a good job running that place. It's like a private club, if you will. Well, it is a private club. So it's a nice way to spend your evenings, get you out of the house for a little bit, let you do some entertainment, pool table, poker tables, all that good kind of stuff. Check them out, House of Fairuza Cigar Lounge. It's a fun place to be, especially during these times when you're not allowed to have fun anymore. You know, I waited for this movie an awful lot, and after I watched it, the old face slap. There are so few movies made about hockey. Mystery Alaska, Goon, probably the last two that were worthwhile. So you think when they make a movie about hockey, they would do it upright. You know, what they did with this thing was they wanted it to be women-driven. That's your first mistake right there, because even women's hockey is a joke. So what were they thinking? but they made the woman director and a woman editor, and wow, did they screw this thing up. These two have combined in the past to make those silly juvenile rom-com movies, have never tackled down anything like a docudrama, which this movie is supposed to be. And it's about the life of Terry Sawchuk. Now, those of you who are hockey fans, and maybe follow my Facebook page of Netminders, know that Sawchuk has a reputation of being probably one of the premier goalies in the National Hockey League. In fact, he changed the game for goalies in many ways, but you won't know that from watching this movie. You won't know what he accomplished. You won't know what he did. You won't have any idea of his longevity and what he went through. He's interacting with people like Emile Francis and Patrick, who used to coach the Pens, Craig Patrick, and Jack Adams and Smythe. And these guys just breeze through the story like, if you don't know who they are, they're easily forgettable characters, and they shouldn't be that way, not in a docudrama about what's going on here. And Mark O'Brien, the guy they got to play Terry Sawchuk, man, is he stiff as a board. Holy hell, could we buy an emotion, Vanna? No, it's just not there. This thing was so disappointing. I don't know why they did this. Sawchuk and even his relationship with Jack Adams, who's played by Kevin Pollak in this movie, would have been a great drama. But wow, this one just high and over the net. No goal here. It earns an F. It's called Goalie, and I'm sad to report it's just not worth your time.
Well, I'm a goalie. If there's one thing I know in this world to be true, you are worth the investment.
Stitch him up.
And the job of the goalie is to stop the puck.
Terry, quit it. You can burn a hole right through her.
You got the greatest goaltender in the league at one end, the kid, Sawchuk.
And when you do, you're the hero. When you don't, you come to the bar alone.
Looks like it gets pretty rough. You just have to promise me one thing, that every now and then you'll take your mind off hockey.
My mind's not on hockey now. It's like I'm holding God.
Just heard it on the radio.
They traded you to the Bruins.
Is it what the press is saying about you? Playing like the Sawchuk of old, a man possessed.
Thanks for that pep talk, Coach.
Okay, I traded you. It's a team, not a family.
I never did any of this for you, or anybody else.
When something is psychotic, you know. Maybe psychotic's not the right word. Let's use bipolar. I think that's a better expression for this next movie. Now, when you see it, it's going to be released as Atomic Apocalypse. I'm not sure why they went ahead with that title, because originally it was called Black Flowers. I'm guessing that Atomic Apocalypse probably sounds more sci-fi menacing than Black Flowers, okay? In fact, if you go on IMDb and you type in Atomic Apocalypse, Black Flowers will come up. That's how much they're associated, all right? When I say bipolar, I truly mean it. The first half of this movie is about a woman and her family trying to survive after an atomic apocalypse. And there are some bad guys in this that are chasing her down, and they're pretty nasty bad guys. At the halfway point of this movie, it totally changes. And it starts being played for, I don't know, smirks and laughs. The main woman, who was once so concerned and protective of her family, now starts wisecracking and doing a very bad female Deadpool impersonation. And the bad guys, who were so gruesome in the front of the movie, by the time the movie comes to its conclusion, they look like the Keystone Cops. It was bizarre. It was so bizarre that I'm giving this one a D. I don't care what name you call it by. Black Flowers, Atomic Apocalypse. This movie needed to find an identity.
see him again! He's dead!
There is no ending to this world. I can smell their fear.
You're in charge now.
Now, I told you at the beginning of the show that I had 2 movies that earned an A. This is the other one, and I hope this doesn't glare too much. Okay, it's called The Sonata. Folks, if you like cerebral horror films, this one, you're going to enjoy this one immensely. I know I did. What do I mean by cerebral horror films? Well, when you talk about cerebral horror, most people immediately go to Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining. Okay? Personally, I didn't like that one. But one of the best cerebral horror films was all the way back in the 60s, I want to say, maybe late 50s. Starred Dana Andrews in Curse of the Demon. That one was great, okay? This is like that. It's a really good movie, and they have some great technicians behind the camera, especially the cinematography, which is done in very subdued lighting. Unless, something like her dress comes up and it's very bright crimson, in dark. It's good stuff. And when the ending comes, you'll go, ooh. It's one of those kind of movies. And I think you're going to like it. It deserved an A. It's definitely worth a watch. It's called The Sonata.
Rose, I have some bad news. Your father is dead. You are the one and only heiress of Richard Marlowe. The composer. Mm-hmm. For the house.
I think that he was working on something before he died. A sonata. Some of the staves, they begin with symbols that I've never seen before.
These symbols were created by a French secret society. If the notes were played with exactly the right pitch, they could conjure and seduce the Antichrist.
The Antichrist. Play it.
Today I'm joined by my buddy again. People are liking him an awful lot as my sidekick here. That is all the time we have time for on today's episode. I've got to tell you that next week's episode is already half done. That's how many movies are being released. You wouldn't know it from all the shutdown, but believe me, the studios and the companies are providing me with enough viewing, and every movie they provide me with, you can watch in the comfort of your own home because it's being released either on VOD, your favorite streaming device, or home video. We only had one tonight that didn't fit that bill. All the others you can watch now in the comfort of your own home, and next week's show will be just like that, things that you can do while you're hunkering down because we have to social distance. Now that you have learned what you have learned, class is dismissed.